дальше. Выйдем мы вдвоем за берега. Мы будем, стоя все в песке, петь песню про печаль и холод в октябре. Я, может быть, сон, может быть, пепел, может быть, больше, чем вчера. Может быть, ветер, что сметет всех нас. Я.
You are listening to This Week in Clown World with Ben and Hobbs, so sit back, relax, take your black pill, and enjoy the show.
Hello, friends. It's once again time for This Week in Clown World with Ben and Hobbs. He's Ben, I'm Hobbs, you're in Clown World. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. There are a lot of places you could be, but you chose to be with us, and for that we thank you. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your enemies. Just get the word out. We would appreciate it. Tonight, actually kind of a slow news week unless you were in one of the places that were just completely savaged by Mother Nature, allegedly.
Yeah, I've seen those. I don't know how those people think that we've got weather controlled down. The government has weather controlled down to such a science they can create a Cat 5 hurricane.
There's a lot of stuff that's kind of compelling. There are patents for it, if you can believe that. They've been weather manipulating since the 1960s. What was it? Operation Popeye in Vietnam, where what was that? Where they
Simon just joined.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Operation Popeye in Vietnam, where they did cloud seeding and intensified monsoons in order to wash out the Ho Chi Minh Trail to keep the Vietnamese supplies from getting to their destination. So that was something that they were doing in the 60s. But then again, it's like you have to take a look at how incompetent the government is in
Exactly.
literally everything else that they do. They can't find their ass with both hands in a map. So it's like, are they really controlling the weather, or are they just making lemonade out of some lemons that lemonade for themselves, lemons for the rest of us? I don't know.
That's what I was getting at. They
Yeah.
fuck up on every other aspect, but somehow they've mastered the art of creating hurricanes.
Yeah. There was a nice little light display in the sky, courtesy of some solar storm activity, unless it was HARP controlling the hurricanes. Yeah.
The HARP bouncing off the ionosphere to create the hurricanes made some northern lights effects, huh?
Exactly. Right.
I feel like the conspiracy theories just have to get wilder and wilder because so many of them come true now. They're just shooting for the moon.
Right, you're right. Reality is at the point right now where it's outstripping many of the conspiracy theories that we've had, where it's even more outlandish in real life than some of the things that we used to concoct in our wildest fever dreams. And so right now it's like, they got to kind of corner the market on sensationalism because real life is giving it a run for its money.
Like I saw the government finally came out and admitted that maybe fluoride is not the greatest thing to be putting in water. Did you see that report?
Yeah. It's was it like one standard deviation of IQ dropping in children?
Yeah.
The
risk of fluoride may not outweigh, or the benefits may not outweigh the risk. And I saw one leftist, I forget, it was some leftist podcast, and they're like, I wasn't even aware there were any risks. We're just dumping this shit in the water and there's risks.
Yeah. And this is something we did a show. It was you, me, and Mike, like 3 or 4 years ago, where we were talking about our favorite conspiracy theories, and the fluoride thing was one of them. Mm-hmm. And I remember we were talking about it, and I'm just like, let's just say that fluoride is good for your teeth. dumping it in the water supply is one of the absolute worst ways to go about it because you can't control the dose. There's people out there that'll they'll take a sip when they're a little bit thirsty. And then there's people like me that drink like 2 gallons of water a day regularly. And even
Yeah.
then, when you're drinking water, you're not like taking a mouthful and then swishing it around and swallowing it. You're
No.
just drinking it. So how is
Well, you're paying to treat that water, and you're spraying it on your yard. You're washing your car with it. You're flushing your toilet with it. It's just such a wasteful way to do it too. I've brought this up on city council twice to try and get rid of fluoride, and they look at me like I'm Alex Jones up there shouting about turning the frogs gay. Like I'm just completely insane. So, I might try it again now that the government has finally admitted that there's risks.
Yeah, better late than never, I guess.
It's a waste of money.
Yeah, but it's also industrial waste.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if we talked about this before, but the fluoride that they dump in the water, you've got calcium fluoride and you've got sodium fluoride, which typically occur naturally and can have some remineralization effects for your teeth. If you get it in like tiny amounts in your diet, it can be good for you, granted. But the stuff that they put in the water is hydrofluorosilicic acid. It's a waste byproduct of refining bauxite ore into aluminum.
Very hazardous, by the way, for the workers putting it in your water.
Yes, extremely. It's like I don't know, like you'd call it like an isotope of fluoride, or it's like a different type of fluoride, but it's not the sodium or the calcium fluoride. It's hydrofluorosilicic acid. It's an industrial waste byproduct. They're putting it in the water. It's making your kids dumb. Might be turning the frogs gay. Who knows? And the reason that they do it is because disposing of it in a safe and proper manner is extremely expensive. So they dump it in low dose quantities in your water supply, and it bioaccumulates in your body, calcifies your pineal gland in your brain, which is the thing that naturally produces your DMT. It's the thing that makes you dream at night. That's your pineal gland. That's your third eye. Looks like a little pine cone in the center of your brain. The more fluoride you get in your system, the more that thing calcifies and stops working the way it should work. But it bioaccumulates in your body, and then you're dead, and they don't have to dispose of it in a proper way. So it's stop putting in your water.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll start picking up steam eventually. We get enough of the normies out of municipal government. Those normie boomers that are still kind of hanging around, and we'll start gaining some ground on that. But yeah, like I said, I brought it up twice, and I may as well have been saying that man never walked on the moon or something as far as conspiracy theories go, the way they looked at me.
Yeah. One step at a time, I guess.
But yeah, pretty much we're maintaining the status quo this week domestically. Another hurricane came through. Presidential candidates are still doing their thing.
Yeah.
Israel is still saying they're going to blow the shit out of Iran, which let me drop Simon in here. We'll find out what is going on with that. Simon, you're in here in 3, 2, 1. Simon, can you hear me? Uh-oh.
Oh, we might have lost him.
Simon, are you there?
Yes, I am. I can hear you
there
fine.
All right. Yeah, we hear you. How was the hurricane for you, bud?
It was pretty gnarly. Had no power for 3 days, but by the power of prayer, luck, and chance, my standard operating procedure, that kindly FPL restored my power supply just a few hours ago. So that was how I was able to reach out to you and let you know that I was, 1, alive, and 2, willing to participate in your fun-filled expedition tonight.
It always is a pleasure to hear from you, Simon, especially when you made it through one of Mother Nature's little fiascos that
I have to say, it was when it was 180 miles per hour.
Yeah,
that was freaking terrifying, because that was going to be like getting hit by a nuclear weapon.
Yeah,
and You know, I
I
had
missed
people
a couple.
saying, like, I had people saying to me, like, I will drive like 3 miles from my house to my aunt's house if they don't have power. And I'm like, if we get hit by 180, nobody will be driving on the roads until the National Guard come through with a bulldozer, Israeli style, for like a month. And, you know, like your bodies will be decomposing. You won't be driving anywhere. That's right.
Right, 180 is enough to pick a car up and put it someplace where it's not
No,
supposed to be.
180 is like a level 4 tornado, right?
Yeah,
So, you know, but 100 miles wide tornado.
right. That's
And
terrifying.
so it's that really was very scary indeed. So in the end, the eye collapsed and it ended up hitting just south of Sarasota at 125 mile per hour. And the storm surge wasn't actually that bad. I mean, they did get storm surge as forecast on the south side of it, but they thought it was going to barrel straight up into Tampa Bay. And Tampa is very, very prone to flooding. Remember, they thought Hurricane Charlie in 2005 was going to obliterate the Republican convention.
Right.
And that did a hard right, like 110-degree turn, smacked into Port Charlotte, about 100 miles, 150 miles to the south. So, you know, I don't know quite how it collapsed like that. I mean, people were saying at the time, you know, like the eyes collapse, there'll be a replacement eye, it'll still be ferocious. But it was a roller coaster ride because they said it was going to be a 2. Then it went to a 4, then it went to a 5, then it went to a super 5. I mean, 5 is 156 mile an hour plus, and it was clocking in sustained, not gust, sustained wind speed of 180 miles an hour, like 36 hours before it made landfall. So at that point, everyone was like, it was breaking so many records. It was this crazy, like, east coast of Mexico going dead east across the Gulf of Mexico. You know, the time of year, hitting Tampa in October, it was like first after first after first. At one point, the millibars was something like 905. I mean, it was super low.
Yeah.
It was the fastest addition of wind speed in like history. I think fastest for the Gulf of Mexico and second fastest in 175 years of history. I mean, it added over 90 miles per hour in over 90, not 90 plus, but from like 90 to 180 in 24 hours. So that was the fastest increase in sustained wind speed ever. So the gusts were clocking in at 200 miles per hour, which would have made it like the second fastest wind speed in like the northern hemisphere. I think they had there was a Royal Marine weather detachment when they had that real ferocious hurricane go through that had like recorded wind speeds at like 350 or something, and it absolutely devastated some of those northern Caribbean islands a few years ago. It would have been second only to that. But, you know, for these communities which have got buildings from the 70s and 80s, I mean, you know, they don't have good tie downs. And even if they've been retrofitted, they kind of like rust out if they're coastal.
Well, Florida hasn't even had a hurricane for what, 10 years or something. Didn't I see that?
Oh, no. We had Helene hit 2 weeks ago.
I mean, across that area.
Oh, into Tampa.
Yeah.
They haven't had one for over 50 years. Well over 50 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No. It's been, and there's all these kind of legends about, you know, that's why the Indians lived in Sarasota, because they only got like a hurricane once every 100 years and all this kind of stuff. So, but some of the outlying Barrier Islands, they got whacked twice in 2 weeks. People literally had storm surge through their houses twice in 2 weeks.
Now, it seems like DeSantis has done a good job of,
Yeah.
you know, corralling everything there.
He's literally like, I don't give a fuck. The rules are out the window. You know, he had the Florida Department of Transportation on the Longboat Key, and it wasn't really that messed up. It just had like a meter of sand on it. They were like, oh, yeah, we can clear it in like a month. He was like, you've got 5 days or you're fired. They got in the contractor. They cleared it in 2 days. minutes.
It's amazing what public servants can do when you put a little
Heat under their arse. It's literally like classic Star Trek with old Scotty and Captain Kirk saying, "Give me everything you've got," and he's like, "She cannot take it, Captain," and he's like, "I want to be like a warp speed 7 in 3 minutes," and somehow USS Enterprise always manages to hold together. That's exactly.
Well, there's an official thing. It's like the Scotty rule. If you work with that sort of stuff, you never tell them the actual.
Yeah, but a month didn't go over well.
Well, that's good to hear that at least the state government is actually working with a little bit of competence down there. I'm sure that federal government is
275 linesmen were camped out in one of Trump's properties in I think Cape Doral or something.
Miami Doral, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and I think there was a total of 50,000 that they pre-positioned. 50,000.
Yeah,
and I mean, just driving around, not getting in the way of people. I should point out, a lot of even real big, mature kind of oak trees even went down. Anybody with a fence, the fences obviously were just obliterated and blown all over the place as debris.
yeah.
These people who put up these kind of 8-foot high plastic fences.
I saw that.
Those
flood fences.
No. Just I'm talking regular privacy.
Oh,
fences.
regular. Okay.
And the posts are by code supposed to be concreted like a yard deep and stuff. Nobody concretes them, the men. They're just regular, 4x4s with a plastic sleeve over the top, and then bar at the bottom, bar on the top. And you can flex these things with a couple of fingers.
Yeah.
Right.
And and then when you read the install specs, it's like you have to do this for 50 miles an hour, and you have to do this for 75. And it's a massive failure of permitting inspection, but it actually generates a lot of flying debris. It's very hazardous, and that needs a severe review. Either you have chain link fence, all of which survived, unless you have a vast number of other things pushed against it, like a dam, and then it'll fold. But otherwise, it's these kind of 8-foot high fences. You're talking about an 8-foot high, 1/4-inch thick, 6 inches wide piece of plastic.
Yeah.
That you can easily just kick out. Like any person can kick out some panels of that, right? And then you try and say, oh yeah, we want that to survive, 100-mile-an-hour wind speed against a kind of like 8-foot by 8-foot, so that's 64 square feet of sail. Really, really absurd. And that's why traditionally all of these gardens were open. You might have them tagged out with some flags or a line or a white fence or something, but generally these houses didn't have any fences in between them. And now everybody's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna somehow swim naked in my pool or something. And they want
good fences make good neighbors.
Yeah, but not when you're in a hurricane zone and it's kind of like 8-foot high and 8-foot wide each panel.
And each panel gets suddenly turned into a railgun projectile by Mother Nature.
And that's blowing at 100 miles an hour, let alone 150. It's going to do.
Most coastal areas would have completely different building codes, but it seems
they say the Miami-Dade building code, but that's only for 2 counties. A tiny percentage of Florida is then classified as high windborne debris hazard zones, but it's such a small percentage of the overall state that companies don't even make products for it. So you're either Miami-Dade, what they call Miami-Dade rated, which means it's basically certified for 150-mile-an-hour wind speed, which is Cat 4, right? Or it's just general Florida building code. It's nothing particularly special at all. So yeah, there's, I don't know, and even then, there was things like, for example, I don't want to go into lots of details, but you get all these hurricane tie downs, which are the same as tie downs that they use in California for earthquakes.
So these are what the people are, they're like throwing up and over their roof. Is that what I was seeing people do? Is that what you're talking about?
This is tying your mud plate to the foundation, or your mud plate or base plate, right? The bottom part of your wall. And then you have a double top plate, which is connected to your truss ends. Okay. Now, as a surveyor, you'll kind of appreciate this, and if you have any kind of tech people. Okay. So a function of your need for the tie down from your truss end to your top plate is determined on whether you have 12-inch spacing, 6-inch spacing, 2 feet spacing between your trusses. Okay. Then whether your decking is 1/2 inch, 5/8, or 3/4, and is it stapled down, is it nailed down, or is it screwed down? Okay. And then obviously you have different nailing patterns for your shingle, right? You can have tarred paper, which is absolutely useless. It's like decorative only. Or you can have the peel and stick. But lots of these developments in the high end have been putting on these terracotta roof tiles. But those are very attractive looking, terrible for heat, but also extremely susceptible to point loads. So if you get flying debris, even palm fronds, right, and they hit the China tiles, terracotta tiles, they will crack them. And also, if the wind's coming perpendicular to their lines, it will just pick them up and just strip them all off the roof.
Well, that's what you want flying around.
Yeah, so then they're really heavy, right? They're like a couple of pounds each, right? So they'll hit you, they'll kill you, they'll smash through your window, or destroy your car and stuff. And so because they're so susceptible to high wind speeds, that the code says that you have to have not just one layer of the adhesive secondary water barrier, but you have to have 2 layers. I've never, ever seen any house built in Florida that, because it's like $6,000 or $7,000 of the peel and stick for a 4,000 square foot roof, to put 2 layers on, because they know that the tiles are guaranteed to get blown off, because they've got like a 3/4 inch thick edge that the wind just picks up and lifts them away.
Yep.
Right? The shingle, the absolute most expensive shingle that you then have to put so many nails in, turns your roof into like a Swiss cheese or a colander for rinsing vegetables. That is rated for 150, but the problem is when that goes, then there's no effective water barrier, because you've literally shot like 6 nails for every 1 square foot to hold it down to get that wind speed.
Well, and you'll have to replace your decking every single time you do your shingles in, if you're putting that many
nails in, because it's literally broken into pieces. Yeah. So there's all kinds of things that aren't being properly done. But on the truss ends, so the code is to have a tie down that will give you 750 pounds of uplift vertical resistance. Okay. But I've sat down with public engineers and done the maths, and I'm like, at the corner of the building, you need 2,000 pounds of tie down, right? And in the center, if you've got 2 foot spacing, you need like 1,200 pounds. And it's also a function of what the king beam is like and the length of your trusses, right? So you could have 30-foot long trusses, and if you don't have a king beam, and you think of the lever action on that, if you lose your apex cap, okay, and then you've got not just the wind coming under your soffits at the top of your wall, but you've got the apex of the truss having the sideways force on it, and you think of the lever action on a 30-foot long lever, it is
Right.
astronomical, right? So I was told, like, well, like, this is the average. And I'm like, but if you do the average on an engineering solution, that means that half of your structure is below average, half is above average requirements for wind resistance, right? But you only need 1 point below the actual mathematical requirement, and that is the weak link in your chain that will fail. So doing an average for insurance or construction reasons doesn't actually do you any good. You want no weak links.
Well, the thing is, the insurance companies will just keep bailing. I mean, it seems crazy that every time.
No, the insurance companies, when they have these.
Well, in Florida, finally, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to really, it's going to be very, very hard to get insurance. I mean, they're talking about, Biden was saying $50 billion of damage, right? And once again, it literally on Tuesday morning, it hit on Wednesday night, right? On Tuesday morning, it looked like it was going to be a super 5. And now I saw Cairns, which is 3/4 of the way up the state of Queensland. They got hit by a super cyclone. That was when they were talking about making it 6 on the scale. That was 180 miles per hour. And it looked like Hiroshima. The only building that was left was the brand spanking new concrete government city hall. Every other building, which were kind of 50 to 100 years old and wood structures, were literally stripped to the slab, and the state forest to the north of the city literally looked like a meteorite had hit it.
We have a comment over here on YouTube back with the fences. Hear me out. Roll up doors, but in fence form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I mean, it's going to cause. I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember, but if you've ever read about them in kind of surveying or engineering school, Hurricane Andrew that obliterated Miami in 1992.
Yeah, barely. I'm old enough to remember that, but I do remember
that was a Cat 5. So they rewrote the building code then they revised it in 2004. But see, the funny thing is that even if you put in way over code, right? Let's say you put in £1,500 instead of £750. The nailing pattern is such that if you're putting in, let's say you've got a 2x4, right? And you've got a U-shaped tie down that goes from the top of the interior facing 2x4 over the double top plate and down the exterior face of the wall 2x4, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to put 8 1.5 inch long size 10 galvanized nails in the top 4 inches of that piece of wood on each side. You're shooting 16 nails into the top 4 inches of a 3.5 by 1.5 inch wide piece of wood. That literally looks like the frayed end of a flag.
Yeah.
Right? So is that really going to give you 1,500 pounds of vertical resistance? Probably not. It's probably just going to tear the end out of the 2x4, right?
Just
then the other thing
concrete housing.
But see, that still has these galvanized straps because the truss ends aren't concrete, right?
Right.
So even if you've got a a CMU that's got rebar and it's been filled with pumped concrete, right? Which is what it's supposed to be. You still got these tie downs that they then wrap around and shoot a load of nails into the end of the trusses, right? But if those straps are only single galvanized, okay, you can get them single galvanized, you can get them triple galvanized, you can get them stainless steel, or you can get them coastal stainless steel, which is like high carbon, right, to make it salt resistant.
Right.
the price goes up tenfold between single galvanized and actual coastal resistant steel. Okay.
Maybe this is where they need to start looking at these 3D printed houses. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have. But see, what's interesting though is if you look at the product catalog for these hurricane and, for that matter, earthquake tie downs, right?
Mhm.
They say, oh, it's not rated for use in coastal applications, which they define as within 1 mile of the coast. Okay. But they've done studies in California for this exact same issue, saying how fast do these hurricane and tornado and earthquake tie downs corrode? And they found that the salt spray in like Marin County and south of San Francisco Bay, right, was blowing 7 miles inland. And when people have the attic ventilators on the top of the roof, or the open ridge vents, or the ventilated soffits, the salt spray just blows in straight through those.
Right into their attic.
And it corrodes within 3 or 4 years, the tie downs, and they literally rust to dust. And the in the catalogs, they say, oh, for our like 10-year warranty or whatever, you have to have every single tie down physically inspected by a public engineer annually. People resent getting their backflow valves on their water feeds checked annually because it costs like $300. Can you imagine having not some housing inspector, but a public engineer crawl round to your truss ends in your attics in Florida when it's like 140 Fahrenheit in there to get to the end with a flashlight and see whether or not your tie downs have corroded? And then if they have corroded, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, you've got cancer. Good luck.
Yeah. Right?
It's like, oh, okay.
So this is the fallacy that everyone is living in. It's very much like US foreign policy that you think, oh, great, we're spending $1 trillion on national defense, but actually most of the shit doesn't work.
Right. Yeah, I know it would probably be ugly as sin, and most people wouldn't want to do it, and very, very Soviet and demoralizing. But places like Florida with hurricanes, and like here in Nebraska with tornadoes and stuff, I often wondered why we go with these timber framed houses instead of like a trapezoidal shaped concrete structure. You'd be basically windproof against everything.
I'll tell you why, because the construction price is 3 times as high.
Right.
Yeah, but if you have to replace your whole house every few years when Mother Nature decides to throw a curveball at you, it's like kind of buy once, cry once at that point.
Yeah, but the problem with some states is, they're pushing this whole idea of managed retreat where you can't get insurance at any price. You can't get flood insurance, you can't get wind insurance. And so either you're a
fire insurance. Don't forget fire insurance. That's another thing.
That's the other thing for wooden structures, right? When they build
let's build a nice thick building
yeah, they're built out of pine, they burn real easy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Looks like we might have lost Ben. He'll be back. He'll be back.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's the long and the short of it. So it's funny because the old houses that were built in the 50s and 60s, the walls are very strong, but the windows are absolute shit. They're just like these louver, like 4 mil, kind of like glass from like Victorian England, and then they're no good whatsoever. And their roof tie downs are lousy. And the big vulnerability is the old garage doors. Can you imagine that's a huge catcher's mitt, and the air blows that in, then it peels the garage roof off. It lifts up one corner of the roof on the main dwelling structure, and then the whole thing peels back like a banana skin. I've actually watched that happen. I was in Jamaica during a real bad storm, and a little bit of the hotel roof got picked up, and the whole thing peeled off like a banana.
Man, Mother Nature's crazy, and of course they're leveraging this into a see climate change.
Oh.
Climate change. You better pay
Yeah.
some more taxes, or the weather won't get gooder. And it's like,
Yeah, I mean
okay.
that's just total BS. I mean, we've had hurricanes like this, certainly going back, the last couple of 100 years, and I'm sure thousands beyond that. Are they steering them? Maybe. On some occasions, are they trying to break up the eye? Possibly, but weather modification is so out in the open. I mean, there's companies public advertising their services in Saudi Arabia and Australia and China and stuff.
Yep.
It's well and truly understood. But you see, that it was forecast to go right through CENTCOM and SOCOM, right?
Mhm.
It was going to take out MacDill Air Force Base. And then at the last moment, it suddenly goes like 55 miles to the south of that. So that was pretty convenient for them, wasn't it? Because that was going to really affect their ability to defend the aardvarks.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's they make it rain once a month in Dubai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember they overseeded recently and they had like a meter of water. They really screwed that up.
Yeah.
And they admitted, the government
aardvarks,
admitted, whoops, we seeded those clouds a bit too much. Sorry, we flooded everyone.
Yeah.
Why does it seem like Iran is kind of having some remorse about what they did? I read a couple stories today. They're like going around the Middle East trying to drum up allies to help them in case
No, they're not trying to drum up allies. They're trying to get them, as they did in April, to agree not to allow, because they all have veto clauses in their basing contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they want them to exercise the veto clauses so that US attack aircraft don't take off from like UAE or Qatar or Bahrain. But frankly, they wouldn't have anywhere to land because the Iranians will fire some ship back and they'll just crater the airfields. But so far, 5 of the 6 GCC countries have promised to be neutral and trigger their veto clauses. And Oman went the whole hog and did a joint military exercise with the Iranian army. So, that's why former Marine 4-star General Mackenzie, who I believe was commander of CENTCOM over a decade ago, right? Do you remember Mackenzie? Wasn't he head of CENTCOM when we were in Afghanistan?
Sounds familiar.
Right? So he did this interesting presentation I watched recently with like the Jewish National Security Association. It's in Israel and in DC. It's called JINSA, JINSA. And he, with some good graphics, explained how it was ridiculous if our adversary was Iran to be in Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and the UAE, because he said those are incredibly vulnerable, even short-range missiles, let alone medium and long range. And he said you'll take these aircraft off and you'll never get to land. And he was actually suggesting a pullback for all US forces to Jordan, Israel, and Egypt.
Well, I liked Israel's comment. I forget who made it. It was something like, when we do attack, it's going to be unbelievable and you'll wonder how we even pulled it off. Did you see that? I forget who made it. It was in response.
They've been doing a lot of cyber attacks. They shut down all of the gas stations in Iran for a couple of days, and they supposedly have done a massive data breach and stolen a whole load of Iranian secrets this morning. And the old Khomeini went into hiding, thinking that this was the first step of their big attack. But
I wouldn't be surprised if they own Iran's nuclear reactors wholesale through cyber attacks, and they're just going to send them all into meltdown.
Well, that's what they did with Stuxnet. Remember?
Yeah.
The problem was Stuxnet got into the emergency shutdown systems for Fukushima.
Yeah.
So when they got hit by a tidal wave,
Stuxnet got out in the wild too, didn't it?
Yeah,
Wasn't it?
it really did. Yeah. So Yeah, I'm sure that what do they got? Unit 9300 and Unit 8200 and stuff, which is basically the starting organization for guys who've gone through that, then set up all the tech companies in the Israel equivalent of Silicon Valley. But things are still very, very problematic there. They now appear to be implementing this plan called the General's Plan. It's General apostrophe S. It's basically Smotric's decision plan, and they're ethnically cleansing northern Gaza. They're taking the top quarter of the Gaza Strip. And this is a plan that some guy came out with in March. Can't remember his Hebrew surname, but he came out with this plan. He was former Israeli military intelligence. I think that's Amal, AMAL, I believe. And it was actually published by a think tank. And then the government denied that it was official policy, even though it was a government-sponsored think tank. And now it's absolutely transparent that is exactly what they are implementing for the last few days and going forward. So no food has got into that area since the 1st of October. They're telling everyone to leave. And that's the first start with of the Gaza Strip that they're just going to annex.
Well, I was really surprised nothing happened on the 7th. I was surprised nothing happened on the 7th. I thought they would have tried to pull something off the.
But don't forget, it was Yom Kippur, right? It was the biggest Jewish holiday of the year.
Yeah.
Yesterday, right? So yeah, they could have been. So we thought on the 7th that the Israelis were going to change the narrative so instead of being victors, they were conquerors on the 7th. And supposedly they had really advanced plans to do that, but they couldn't agree the target list with the Biden administration because they wanted to take out all of the oil facilities like Cargill Island and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But Biden was freaking out because he didn't want, price of oil jumping over 100 if they did that. So,
well, I think I think Harris is in big trouble, honestly. Right. I saw Trump was campaigning in California today, and it's like, why would he even be in California? It'd just be a waste of time at this point, unless there's something showing in the polling that he has a chance in California.
It looks like Trump may have taken Israeli citizenship because he gave a speech to a whole load of Israelis at an event, I think it was in New York. And he said to them, "My fellow citizens."
I don't know.
No, I mean, I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility in the slightest that both Trump and Secretary of State Blinken both have Israeli citizenship, even if it's honorary.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I'd like. Oh, I was going to say I saw that thing too, where Ben Shapiro was there smiling like a goblin while Trump was wearing the tiny hat and like praying at some rabbi's gravesite or something. But we don't have a whole lot of time left, and I'd like to shift focus to another one of our overseas military boondoggles over in Ukraine. It looks like Zelensky is maybe coked out of his mind and shitting his pants. Says that he's ready to negotiate a peace deal.
But it's his peace deal, which is basically Putin resigns, surrenders himself to The Hague, the government resigns, they break Russia into 50 pieces. That's his peace deal, right? So yeah, that's not going anywhere. That's what they had the summit in Geneva about, and he's trying to schedule a second summit to try and push that plan forward. And then he's also been going around Europe touting his victory plan, create the fourth army, which will then defeat the Russians in like 2025. And he wants a hard offer with a time deadline for Ukraine to join NATO, and ideally like $10 million a month of kind of like, economic support. And so that's like a complete non-starter. But because of Milton ripping across Florida, Biden was supposed to be today in Ramstein base in Germany, the big American
I think
base.
I remember you saying that last week. He was going to a meeting in Ramstein.
Yeah. but it was October the 12th, which is today, right? He was
Yeah.
supposed to be arriving today, but because of Milton, he cancelled his attendance, so the whole thing got downgraded.
Like Biden's doing anything anyway.
Well, no, but the point was, it wasn't so much that Biden was there; it was
But
that
his
because
staff. Yeah.
it was because the American president was going there, the French president and the German chancellor and the Spanish prime minister and the Italian, they were all going to go, so that they had all of the top leaders together, and it was going to be the highest level set of delegations at the Ukraine Coordination Center in Ramstein in the last 2 years. And when he pulled out, everyone else was like, "Oh, thank God! So now I don't have to go." So everyone else pulled out. It's kind of like, disintegrated into a bit of disorganization. But they now appear to be doing, because they were told, okay, great. So your 2025 plan is, you're now recruiting 16-year-olds and stuff, and wonderful. But
Well, there's no. I mean, Zelensky's got to realize there's no way the American government can be sending money to him with the 2 hurricanes. I mean that.
oh no.
Where there's a will, there's a way,
Right.
gentlemen.
Yeah, you've got to remember, we've got the lame duck session, and bad shit always gets jammed through in the lame duck session, right? So they've got 9 weeks from but they go back on November the 13th, I believe, and then they got that until January the 20th. So there's all kinds of crap that they can put through during that period. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest to see 50 billion for Israel and 50 billion for Ukraine. I'm anticipating that.
Well, they already kind of, sort of have been.
Johnson's talking about doing like a COVID Zoom call for Congress, or at least for the House of Representatives, to chuck in an extra 10 billion for FEMA or something. Because
I guess FEMA is still all sorts of fucked up in the Carolinas.
It got reported in the Wall Street Journal today that they've brought forward $9 billion in spending from money that they're assuming they're going to get, but isn't actually allocated yet.
Well, there was a group here. They loaded up a semi truck with goods to take to the Carolinas. So they took them. FEMA told them that they contacted FEMA ahead of time. FEMA was like, "Yeah, take them to this spot. We'll be able to distribute." They arrive at this spot that FEMA said to go to, and FEMA's like, "No, we're closing this up. They don't need aid anymore." So they go down the road. They find a church, and the church is like, "Yeah, everybody needs this stuff. Leave it here. We'll start distributing it."
Yeah.
I mean, that's an actual story from a reputable person that went there and did it.
Right.
FEMA closed up the camp and said, no, they don't need it anymore. Bullshit.
Yeah, sure. Well, FEMA was saying you had to, you were like camped out on the side of a mountain trying to guard your home site, not homestead, but your actual site.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were like, yeah, apply online. Yeah, I'm on the side of a mountain. Okay, well, call us. Yeah, I have no cell phone signal, and my phone's been out of battery for a week. Go to the post office. Yeah, the post office got washed down, valley. Sorry, we're going to close up in that case.
Well, we were talking about this last week too, for voting.
Who was driven to a FEMA center, and she literally had like the muddy clothes that she was wearing. Her whole house and her pets had been like washed down a mountainside. And they wouldn't give her anything because she couldn't prove with a driver's license what her homestead site was. And she was literally covered in mud, and somebody had driven her with nothing, no ID, no phone, no wallet, no cash, literally nothing. And they were like, sorry, can't help you because you can't prove your site of residence.
Yeah, it's insane.
But if you had digital identity, would be able to do a retinal scan to confirm your pod.
If you had a microchip implanted under your skin, we wouldn't have this problem.
We wouldn't have. That's exactly the point. That's where this stuff ends up going. Gee, if only you had this. Like those Palestinian kids that are writing their name and address on their arms in case they get killed, so they can be buried with the other pieces of their family members. But if they were microchipped, they wouldn't have to write on their arms with red felt tip.
Sorry, I'm not a fucking dog. I'm not going to microchip myself so I can make sure that my body gets back to where it belongs.
But you could be a furry.
No. all furries must hang.
If you had a microchip linked to your central digital currency, you wouldn't have these issues.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah, you
just
get your
fix all that.
$750
we,
lickety
we, we,
split.
we saw this in the floods in New Zealand. They said no mortgages to rebuild, no insurance, and we have to do managed retreat. That's the phrase. Managed. We I'm sure I discussed that with you,
Yeah.
6-9 months ago. That phrase, managed retreat. So you can only have beachfront property if you're a billionaire, basically.
Right, because they're not scared of any climate change. It just simply goes around them.
Look at the properties that Obama built in
Martha's Vineyard, right
Martha's
there on the shore.
Vineyard and in Hawaii, they're literally like 10 foot of elevation.
Right, yeah.
According to what was the vice president who lost to Bush?
Gore.
Kerry.
Yeah. According
Gore.
to Gore, they should all be like 30 feet underwater.
Right.
But Obama's like putting millions into these two places.
Right. So looking at what's going on here with the absolutely atrocious FEMA response, I was actually today I was talking with my mom who lives with us, and my dad came up to visit because we had some birthday parties for the kids, and they were asking like what is what's going to happen and why are they doing such a shit job of this down there in Florida and North Carolina and Tennessee, and I'm just like, there's two things that I think are probably to blame for this. Is like, one, they're dragging their feet on these hurricane reliefs because they want to dump as many problems into Trump's lap as possible because they've resigned themselves to that they're going to lose the election, and they're just going to work towards sabotaging his administration with as many headaches as they can so that the stuff that he wants to get done will have to get put on the back burner while he does the things that he needs to get done, vis-a-vis wars and natural disasters and fuel shortages and currency collapse and God knows what other crazy shit they're going to be cooking up on them. So that's why I think that they're having such a embarrassing reaction to these hurricanes, because they don't want to deal with it. They want to make it Trump's fault when he inevitably fails in their mind. And then when his administration goes from 2024 to 2028, and at the end of his term, they are expecting America to be in a worse place than it is right now, if you can imagine what that would look like. But they're expecting it to be in a worse place than it is right now. That way they can point the finger at all of us useless chuds out here in flyover country and be like, yeah, you learned your lesson, didn't you? Now you're going to vote the way that we want you to vote. You're not going to vote for some strong man. You're not going to vote for some populist. You're going to do what you're told because you're worse off now. He wasn't going to come in and save you. Mm-hmm. And the other theory I have is that they're going to allow the election to happen. All of the polls are saying that Trump is up. All of the man on the street interviews are saying that Trump is going to win this thing handily. The election is going to come. The next morning, we're all going to wake up and we're going to be told that Harris won. It's going to be obvious that they cheated, but everybody in the federal government is too big of a chicken shit to do anything about it. And that's when you get the civil unrest that they want to use as a precursor to crack down on the Walmart smellies, the flyover country chuds, the stupid low sloping brows out here in flyover country that they just absolutely
guns
hate.
and Bibles.
Yep, the gun-toting, Bible-thumping dipshits out here that, grow your fucking food.
Yeah, they don't realize how quick it all falls apart if that doesn't get to their cities.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not completely convinced that, to be honest. I mean, both storms have been very effective in disrupting heavy Republican voting areas. So that could potentially affect several Senate races. It could also affect the governor race in North Carolina, because that guy's not standing for re-election. It's the attorney general versus the lieutenant governor, Robinson, whose campaign is disintegrated because it turns out he was hanging out on various porn websites a decade ago.
Is that the race?
Yeah.
I think he lost.
So, they only need to cheat in a handful of states and in a handful of cities, which obviously Mayor Daley in Chicago has previously proved was easy to do, right?
Right.
So I'm not sure that they really need to worry that much nationwide. I mean, Trump and Vance are very undisciplined, particularly Trump. I mean, Trump was wild, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very concerned personally that his co-chair of his transition team has been saying how Jared Kushner has been giving him names for key appointments. When we were told that Ivanka and Jared were like out, they weren't going to be involved at all in the next administration. And if he's putting up names for Secretary of State or National Security or any of these other kind of key positions, we know that he's kind of like massively influenced by all the Jewish mafia and stuff. I mean, he's been pushing the re-annexation of Gaza hard, Jared Kushner. I mean, he was making jokes about, a great place to invest in real estate and stuff. So,
yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people are really unaware of how much influence he's having second time around. I mean,
don't like that. Nope, don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, but I mean, he's gonna okay the annexation of the West Bank, and the whole world's going to be against that because he's really enamored with what's his name, David Friedman, the former Israeli ambassador, and that was the deal that he did with Miriam Adelson when she funded that super PAC for Trump with $100 million.
Yeah.
I mean, we had the old Sheldon Adelson, the Vegas magnate. I mean, he was financing Trump before the last two elections. He passed away, and his wife stepped up. He's given Trump $100 million. Like the previous deal was that he would move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He honored that. He okayed the annexation of the Golan Heights, which they then named Trump Heights. Seriously, right? And then he gave that interview to those two Israeli guys who came and interviewed him at Mar-a-Lago. And he said, I've already told David Friedman that he can come and pitch to me the annexation of the West Bank, but he's got to cover the issue in less than 5 minutes. So he's literally going to have this arch Zionist who he had previously appointed to be America's ambassador to Israel, trying to persuade him in 5 minutes what the fate of 3 million Palestinian people should be.
Right. So, like, what say does the United States have over the annexation of any of this? I mean, I can understand moving the United States embassy from one city to the next. Yes, that's within our authority, but why does Israel need America's blessing to annex the Golan Heights or the West Bank or the north quarter of Gaza?
And then they need a major country to give it a fig leaf of
legitimacy?
Not legitimacy, but even diplomatic recognition. I mean, you can say legitimacy, but also in the West Bank, there's oil there, there's lumber there, there's other minerals supposedly below it, and they want to be able to export those. And if Europe won't take any of it, then they need a ready and willing market in the United States. So if Kamala were to win and she would say, we will not import into America anything that comes from any Jewish-owned or managed company in the West Bank, otherwise known as Judea and Samaria, that would gut their market and it would make it economically unviable.
Right.
But you've also got to remember that there's a huge number of American citizens moving there thinking that it's like the Wild West and they can get a homestead for $10.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely unfortunate that we get ourselves wrapped up in this sort of thing. It almost makes a guy wish for the simpler times of I conquered this and it's mine now, rather than these internecine weird diplomatic legitimacy and all this other crap that we need to go through.
Well, that's because we're trying to enforce the rules-based international order, and as we violate our own
Every
rules
day.
every day, then the rest of the world will like, hang on a second, you told us this is what we all had to do, and you're like completely and totally not doing it.
Yep. Unreal. I think we got Ben back here.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can
I
hear
don't know
you,
what's
but I
going
just
on I don't know what's going on my video now.
So
Yeah.
the big event for the week, just so you guys are aware, I know you'll be reading all about it in Urdu, is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit on the 15th and 16th in Islamabad. And assuming that you're not flying to Pakistan to cover it live, I know you'll be enjoying reading the Pakistan Times in Urdu on a daily basis. So maybe we can talk about the outcome from that next show. And then the following week, we've got the big BRICS event of the year, which is the BRICS Leaders Summit in Kazan. And I think that's the end of October. Yeah, so that's coming up next after SCO. So we've got 10 countries meeting at SCO, plus the partners. And then
Trump's crypto is dropping on Tuesday. Don't forget that.
Yeah, the BRICS 10. Supposedly, they're going to sign up another 14 countries, the rumor is, as full members. So it's going to go from BRICS 10 to BRICS 24. So no 11 and 12 like the series. And then
you all right over there?
Oh, it's this cat.
then they're going to sign up a whole load of observer countries as well, so they can participate in the meetings. So we've got two real big events happening in the next 2 weeks, and there's the possibility of another hurricane about a week out, right?
Of course. Where's
So
this one going to hit?
It's going to hit possibly Central Florida again. So that'll be 3 strikes in 3 weeks, which will be apparently a global record going back 10 billion years or something. So.
Why does God hate Florida?
I'm not sure God does hate Florida. It's probably one of the few places, with the exception of Miami, where less deviancy is occurring than other parts of America.
No, Florida is one of the better states, honestly.
Yeah, but
looking forward to going there in a couple of years.
Have you never been to Florida, or you think you're moving here?
No, I just want to visit. I want to go to the Key West. So,
yeah, that is very interesting.
We went a couple of years ago on vacation.
All right.
So hopefully it doesn't get wiped out in this next hurricane.
Yeah, I think there are points of Florida which are definitely worth considering relocating to. And for your line of work, on the old machining, I know that there's actually quite a lot of demand for those skills. One of the tech colleges in Central Florida, they have a whole computer-assisted design and computer-assisted machining course. And a lot of those guys go to work in aircraft part manufacturing in Florida for General Dynamics. General Dynamics, they've got a place in Sarasota, and they have, I think that one, yeah. And then there's a Lockheed Martin place near Orlando.
Yeah, don't tell my wife, or she'll be expecting us to pull up stakes and move down there.
Oh no, I like winter too much. There's no way I could move there, but I'd like to visit.
Yeah, I'm basically doing that, but for Raytheon, not General Dynamics.
Right.
Yeah. Although, yeah, Florida is nice. I just don't think I could find a house that would be within my
no, that's not true. If you're not wanting to be within, 30 minutes of popular beaches, there's still cheaper options. So I think you'd be, and particularly now might be a wonderful time, as some people decide it's too scary and they sell up.
Yeah, Simon sounds like he's trying to recruit a small militia. Come down to Florida for the inevitable secession. We need you here.
Why do you think it would be small?
Yeah.
Good point. All right, we're running up on an hour right now, and I can hear my kids upstairs screaming and banging around. So it sounds like Mama might need help. So let's wrap it up, gentlemen. Always good to hear from you, Simon. We're glad that you're safe. That's no
Thank
joke.
you. Thank you so much, guys. I'm sorry if I went too heavy on the engineering, but you guys are both smart and you appreciate those kind of like mechanical aspects. So the general moral of the story is beware the weak link in the chain.
Always.
Exactly.
Well,
so yeah, you gonna close this out?
Oh, I could say a few things for me, Ben, Simon, and Kitty. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you're new here, no matter which platform you're watching us on, if you're watching us on Rumble, go subscribe on Facebook and YouTube. And if you're on one of those shadow ban platforms, please migrate over to Rumble. We appreciate you guys being with us tonight. We would appreciate you more if you liked, subscribed, and shared and told your friends about it. That would be fantastic. Anything down in the comments section is also welcome. You guys are welcome to jump on in there. We usually get a few. So thank you for joining us tonight, everybody. And what, Ben?
Stay honky.